Welcome to the Inside View. I'm Ralph Renzulli, your host. Thank you for watching. My guest today is Mike Edwards. Mike is the Executive Director of the Herkimer County Land Bank. Mike, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you.
Well, I have to tell you, I've been looking forward to this conversation ever since we scheduled it because, well, the history of the older land bank, and obviously Little Falls has some issues, so, and we'll get into that. But I thought I'd start out with a very general question. For people who are watching or listening who may not know what a land bank even does, tell me, what's the definition of a land bank and its purpose?
Well, the purpose that we've decided, you have to do what you're going to go by with our county, which is part of the reason they broke away from the Greater Mohawk Valley Land Bank and formed their own. They want to clean up blighted, abandoned, vacant properties in these communities and try and help them out. And the county took the first step in doing that by forming their own land bank.
So obviously, the Greater Mohawk Valley Land Bank, I believe, was established in 2016. And obviously, as you say, there were some issues. So what was the specific issue that the county had with that organization that forced them, not forced them, but that led them to the decision to disassociate themselves from it?
I believe that the main objective was that they felt that progress was not occurring the way they felt it should occur, meaning properties weren't getting cleaned up, abandoned, blighted, demolitions weren't occurring, and that was the main reason. There's other reasons, but it's not for me to say. I'd speak to the old board members for that board. There were Herkimer County board members on that board. I think some of the issues were reporting discrepancies or not reporting at all. They had asked for documents. They didn't receive those documents. But the biggest issue is they felt they didn't have any control over what was happening. And the county legislature decided, obviously, to form their own land bank, and they have a lot of say in this land bank. The legislature has 3 members on the board, and the county administrator is the chairman of the board. The county treasurer is the treasurer for the land bank board as well. So there's a lot of say from the county within this board, and it kind of helps steer things. And like I've sent letters or emails out to all the towns and villages opening up that I'm willing to come to your community to talk to you, to explain the program, and try and work. We want a coalition. We want to work with everybody. Mm-hmm. Small communities, large communities, it doesn't matter. Everybody's in this ballgame. We all want to clean up our county. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that up. That's a good point. Do you have a board of directors?
That's what I was just talking about. The board of directors.
I know you mentioned a couple of them, but there must be more than that.
There are. Go through them. Jim Wallace is the chairman. Mark Feen, Little Falls guy, is the current treasurer. The secretary. Pete Campione is the vice chair, and Kim Berlinia is the treasurer. Also on the board is Jim Bono, ex-legislator. He's the Herkimer County, I forget what they call it. Yeah. He's that. Greg Malta's on the board, and Ray Donnelly is on the board. Legislative-wise, from the county legislature, Bob Schrader is the committee chair, which controls kind of the land bank. Not in a sense, but it flows through that committee on the county legislature.
Okay. So what makes the Herkimer County Land Bank different than the Greater Mohawk Valley Land Bank?
I don't know a lot of difference in how we. The difference is the county has a lot more say in how things are going to happen or get done. And our goal is to one property at a time and move forward and just keep moving forward until we get these things done. Okay. There's been I don't want to slight the other land banks or, the Greater Mohawk Valley Land Bank, but I wasn't a part of it. The objective now is to move forward and they have control over it to do that. And they put the money forward to do it. You know, they've funded the program with county funds of $265,000 to start the program. We just received our grant, which was $1 million grant. So we're established now. We're moving forward, and hopefully things.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that grant because the last article I read about the land bank was that you were applying for it. I didn't know you got it, so congratulations. That's terrific.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was. It's $100,000 a year annually for 3 years for administrative and office type things, and $700,000 for rehabilitation and demolition.
Okay. You were talking about the organization. In addition to all those names you mentioned, are there any other employees? I think one of the knocks on the other land bank was that there was a lot of overhead involved. So I'm thinking about the Herkimer County Land Bank. Tell me, how many employees?
It's me.
It's pretty
me.
lean?
Yeah,
it's you. Okay.
It's me. I met. I don't want to say, there's a lot involved, but it's been a process. The county's been great with certain aspects, allowing me in-kind services to have my office in the county still. Phone, internet, electric, all that stuff is through the county still. They're allowing me to stay there, rent-free. So it is easier for a staff of one. Obviously, we need other services to help. We just, last month, I think it was actually September 29th, but signed an agreement with the Mohawk Valley Economic Development District, and they're going to be handling all accounting functions for the Herkimer County Land Bank. So we're kind of doing a joint thing there with them. They're going to be handling, like I said, the accounting portion of the program, which is, there's a lot to that. I started delving into it, and we either have to contract with someone or probably hire staff, and staff is always expensive. So we decided that it was easier, it's better for everybody involved to just do it this way.
Well, from a selfish standpoint, I'm glad to see Pete Campion's involved because he's a local guy, and obviously we have our issues here like a lot of other communities.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, what drew you to this role?
Well, I had years, I was a fireman for 30 years, Herkimer, excuse me, codes officer, background in building construction, excuse me. My background is building construction. I know a lot about it. I've been doing codes. I did it for several municipalities over the years. And I always, I've been involved in government. I was a legislator for 10 years. We've got to do better, and we have to do better as a group and as a whole. And we're all one group. It's not Herkimer or Little Falls. We have our individual communities, but we're all one, and we need to back each other, help each other, and get these things done. And these properties are just getting worse and worse and worse, and nothing's been happening. So that's what my thing I started. I said that we're going to do one property at a time. We're going to change Herkimer County one property at a time. And we may have more than one project going, but as we get things done, we did our first project in Herkimer. It's completed. Been demolition. It was a blighted, terrible property, codes issues for the last 20 years. We've got that demolitioned. The property was cleaned up, and it's now been sold already. So it's back on the tax rolls. And that's the objective, and it may not be a demolition. It may be a rehabilitation project where we're, hiring contractors, or we may get someone that wants to say, I'll redo that property. And there's things that they have to do it, but there's a couple of avenues happening to get these things done.
Okay, good.
Long answer, but
no. That's fine. So, tell me about your personal vision for this.
Well, hopefully I'm out of a job in a few years, and we get these properties cleaned up. I think that's the goal. I mean, you need to, you don't, you want to get things done, and that's my objective, and that's why I say. Do it with as less staff as you can, because administrative costs can go up and up and up to the point where it's out of control. If we can keep it simple, as the saying always goes, keep it simple, stupid, you know, you're going to move forward. We want to move forward, and that's my objective is, like I said, we're going to beautify Herkimer County one property at a time. We're going to do it. And the legislature's behind this movement, and my board is behind this movement, and hopefully we can do it.
Yeah, I think doing exactly what you said and showing some progress and communicating that progress to each community, I think will do a lot for credibility, because obviously the Greater Mohawk Valley Land Bank, it's one of the things I don't think they did well. I don't think they were communicating, and they didn't show any progress. At least, and I don't know. It was a 6-county land bank, so I wouldn't pretend to know a lot about it. But I know there was a lot of disappointment in Little Falls in particular, because there was really no impact on Little Falls that I know of. There might have been 1 or 2 homes that were taken care of, but I mean, over 8 years, just didn't happen. So I'm really glad that you're doing this. Go ahead.
One more point is that excuse me, we want to get these things done, and like I said, we're trying to get everybody involved, the communities involved, and not asking for we don't want to come out and say, hey, Little Falls, we'll tear this down if you participate half. Maybe Little Falls could say, geez, we'll let you use our city engineer to do the engineer services, and great, it's helping us out. It's a joint venture. We're doing that, and it may be we're going to provide trucks to help hauling, whatever it is, but we want to move it forward.
So this could be considered almost a consolidation of services sort of thing. When you're using let's say, like you said, I think the engineer example is a good one. If you came to Little Falls and you had to have some engineering advice, perhaps you could use Chet Szymanski, and you wouldn't have to pay for that service. The city would be providing a service and getting something in return on a particular property.
Correct.
Correct? Is that right?
The city has to buy into the program then. They're saying, yeah, we're going to provide, we're not going to give you a monetary amount, but we'll buy into the program. We'll let you use our engineering service, which, saves the land bank costs.
Right.
So, yeah.
Let's talk about the acquisition process. I mean, and I'll use Little Falls as an example. Obviously, I live here and I'm interested in Little Falls, but I think there are like 100 properties in Little Falls that need help, whether it's rehabbing or demolition or whatever it might be. How do you go about doing that? How do you prioritize, and how do you acquire a property? What's the process?
Well, what we did with the first round, and back to the last question, not to go backwards, but it kind of goes with it, is we took 12 properties from the in-rem process before the county. So these are properties that are going up for tax sale. The land bank took them prior to going to the sale, and they were determined by the board of directors. So they went through the list of properties that were in the tax sale and said, these are the ones that we're going to tackle. My point was regarding this is when we talked with the Zoom meeting with the state official that handles this grant that we were doing, she asked us similar questions. What are you going to do? What's your objective here? And I says, we'd like to get these 12 properties done in this 3-year block. This grant is 3 years. We'd like to get these. She goes, that's very ambitious. I'm thinking 12 properties doesn't sound that ambitious, but maybe it is. But we have to have, you have to have some goal that you want to reach. I'm hoping that we get 12 done. If we get 10 done, okay, but we didn't reach our goal. Next time, maybe we'll reach our goal. But that's our goal. That's my goal. But so anyways, back to the new question. We took these properties through before it went to interim, where it went to the county tax sale, based on what the board of directors chose. And I don't know how, if they talk to their community leaders or if they know they're the ones that know best what's happening in their communities. They chose these properties, and we're working on these properties. There are 85 plus zombie properties. And there's a difference. There's the ones that are going for taxes, and then there's the zombie, what we call the zombie list. These are properties that the county hasn't taken title to. They're just kind of floating. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of those properties. Little Falls, some of the ones you're speaking of, if there's 100, I forget what the list is for the city. It might be 30. I'm not sure. I'd have to go through it. But 70 of them might be people own those properties still. They're paying the taxes on them. They're still there. It's, I've had, we've had some in the city and other areas of the county want to donate the property to the land bank. So, and we're looking into that. Other counties do it. There are policies. I'm looking at the different policies to see if, obviously, I think you have to look at them all because they all need to be addressed. And if we can do it and benefit the community without a great expense, I think we should look at those deeply.
Are you saying that if a property owner in Little Falls had a property that they're not living in it, it's just sitting there, it's vacant, it's deteriorating, they don't want to sell it, they might not get anything out of it, they could actually donate it to the land bank?
That is correct. We've been approached for
Okay.
a couple already.
They get a tax deduction for doing that? I don't know.
They won't be paying the taxes.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe they would.
There's no program we've set up for that. It's, they're being relinquished of the obligations for the property that's deteriorated. And the two that I'm aware of in the city are deteriorated. One of them, I believe, could be rehabbed. The other one probably will have to be demolition. But we'll see. We're moving through that process on whether we're going to take donated properties, and I believe we are. The board has good questions. Why should we do this? And I'll give them reasons that I've researched and found why. And the biggest one being, if the communities think that this is one that they want to tackle, we should look at those.
Okay. So getting back to how you prioritize the projects, did I understand you correctly that it's a committee decision?
It is the board of directors make that decision.
Okay.
So
it's an interesting approach. But you have input on that yourself.
I do. They ask me questions, and I have to. I rely on codes officers do a report every year for different properties, and I rely on the local codes officers for their input and what's happening in their communities.
Okay. So if a citizen in any one of these communities, let's say they live next door to a blighted property, what would be the process for them to make a suggestion to the land bank, and how does that work?
It depends what the property is. Is it, is it a property that's going up for taxes? Is it on the zombie list, or is it privately owned? There's three things that are happening there. So if it's going up for taxes, obviously the land bank can get it prior to it's going out for the tax sale. If it's on the zombie list, the county could take it. It'll take about 2.5, 3 years for it to go through the in-rem process, the county process to take that property, or the community could, meaning the city of Little Falls, could take title to the property and turn it over to the land bank. And the final thing is the property owner could turn it over to the land bank. Those are the choices. So if someone has a property that's, their neighbors doesn't live there and it's falling down or it needs help, those are the three avenues. It's either A, B, C, or D.
Okay.
So
great. I think that's a good time to take a short break here. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Thank you for watching.
Visit My Little Falls and stay connected with the latest news, information, and events in the city and the area. Our mission is to generate interest in the community and connect residents in a more meaningful way by facilitating deeper conversations about how these stories will shape the future of the Mohawk Valley. Join thousands of weekly visitors who stay up to date with feature stories, interviews, videos, our event calendar, and print publication, the Mohawk Valley Express. It's about timely local news for the community, keeping citizens informed about important issues, telling about the people who live and work here, and giving locally owned businesses the opportunity to reach a very targeted audience of locals and tourists alike. It's a whole new form of media-rich content developed specifically for today's mobile lifestyle and listeners. You can download our iOS app in the iTunes Store, listen to our country music streaming radio station, or sign up for a weekly newsletter. Stop by today at mylittlefalls.com. You'll be glad you did.
And we are back with Mike Edwards. Mike, before the break, you mentioned that word zombie. It's been thrown around a lot over the last several years. What's the definition of a zombie property?
Well, it's a property that is, I would say, blighted. It's abandoned, or it's one of those properties that would fall into a land bank normally for rehabilitation or demolition. But the county has chosen not to take that property because of the back taxes that are owed on it. So there's a big hunk of money sitting there, and the county's not taking title to that property for whatever reason. They don't believe it'll sell at an auction. So, back to your analogy, the neighbor, the house is bad. If it's bad, there's holes in the roof and it's falling down, the county really doesn't want to take title to that property. So there it sits. So the taxes, and what happens when the county doesn't do that, I forget the year, a few years back, they do not have to pay the taxes back to the community. So the county would make the city whole, or the village of Herkimer whole, whoever it is, that property, that community, they'd make them whole. They don't have to do that anymore. So that property is just floating. And that's what we call a zombie property. It's just,
Okay.
it's there, and they've got to be addressed. That's a big issue.
What's it cost to tear down a property, a home?
The one we just did in Herkimer was $35,000. We have about 40 into it with legal and, air monitoring. You have to have, so it's upwards of 35 to 40,000 to do a demolition of a property. And again, that could go up and down depending on where it is. If it's on some of the properties in the city, you quite steep. You might be, it might be a different quote or bid, but we put them out to bid. That's how the process works.
So that initial 300,000 could get eaten up pretty quickly.
Yes. Well, the grant was for the 300, the 265 was the county tax funds that they appropriated for this program. The grant, there's 700,000 for rehab and demolition. So it will get eaten up. Some of the properties, it should be cheaper demolitions. If you get the asbestos abatement done, it's a lot cheaper. I'm just today getting a RFP, or request for proposal, for asbestos testing on the remaining properties, because of the Solid Waste Authority has a program where they'll tear down properties throughout the winter and you just pay the tipping fees. It's a great benefit for the communities if we can get these properties to make sure there's no asbestos. If there is, and then you have to weigh the cost of abatement versus tearing it down hot. Tearing it down hot means in place, asbestos in place. You have air monitoring, which is expensive, but it's not as expensive as abatement. So we look at those costs, and then whatever the determination is to do it, that's the way we go.
Okay, thanks for that. So tell me a little bit more about the team. If you have some properties and they're not defined yet as to what you're going to do with them, how do you go about approaching that? How do they determine whether it's going to be torn down, rehabilitated, or whatever?
Basically, that's been me. I would go out and evaluate the property, look at it, again, with the codes officer, we have title to them now, so we can go in them, go through them, and determine at that point, maybe we need to have an engineer look at it, back to looking for buy-in from the community, however it may be. The two properties in the city that are on the list currently, were initially slated for demolition. I wanted to take a step back and just have the city engineer look at them and say, okay, if you believe they need to be torn down, give me your opinion. And he would do that. He'd look at it and give me an evaluation that he thought that, yeah, it's beyond repair or not.
Herkimer County is geographically pretty big. Have you actually met with every community leader about the land bank?
I have not. I've put it out to all communities, like I said. I have a folder on my desk and scheduling meetings to set up meetings to go with them, and in the coming months. It's going to take time. Boards meet once a month, sometimes twice. So I'm planning it out that I'll get to each of them that respond, and those that don't, I'll try and reach out again. Okay. I think it's important because, like I said, it's not just the big communities, the Herkimer, Little Falls, you know, the only, and it's Litchfield or Dodgeville or, you know, Salisbury. We all have these properties, and the zombie list shows you that they're all over the county. So again, you got to reach out to everybody.
So you've talked about rehabbing, you've talked about demolition. How about material? Let's, you know, in Little Falls, for example, Little Falls is known for its architecture, and some of these properties that may need to be demolished may have beautiful corbels. They may have something structurally about them that's historic, and that, material that other people may want to use. So tell me, how do you approach that issue?
Well, we would have, again, the local codes are going to be involved, and the local communities are going to be involved in this process wherever we go. So if in that instance, if the city deemed, you know, we'd like to keep somehow trying to save some of these things, we would build that into the specification. If it's a demolition, we'd build that into the specification to try and retain these things. You know, if the city wanted to use them or whoever, you know, like you're saying, the cornice or whatever on the buildings, if you could save them, we would try build it into the bid process to save those.
Do you have a place to store these things, or will that be up to the local community?
It would be up, if that was their choice and they wanted those, that would be up to them. The New York Land Bank Association, which we are a member of, some communities have done these studies where they did a demolition, and then they've done where they take the building down, take it apart, you know, reconstruct, I guess, take the building apart piece by piece, and it was more costly to do that than to just demolition the building. So they've shied away from that a little bit, but they still, back to your point, if there's parts of that structure that are salvageable, it might be a weather vane area or a cupola or something that, you know, the community thinks that'd be great to retain. Well, we could work around that. You know, again, that's working with the local community, what they want to do, how they want to do it.
Okay. So if you have a property that's rehabbed, going to be rehabbed, tell me about that process, and what if you sell it, turn around and sell it, what happens to that money?
Okay, the money goes back to the land bank. If it's sold, it goes into start more projects. Rehab is built, so there's a lot to a rehab project. That's why we haven't started those yet, but we will. And we've only got a couple slated to do for rehab until we figure out, there might be more to determine what the city decides what we're going to do with those two properties. But anyways, you have to get RFPs out. You have to get contractors, have to submit applications, you know, that want to do the work. They have to be, you know, there's a process that review their qualifications. You know, they have to be reputable. They have to, you know, and that's my job to determine that, to go out and check their work, to see what they've done, check their references like you're doing anything. Once that's completed, you know, there's verifications. They have to have the proper insurance. Any employees have to have workman's comp. They have to have, you know, liability, all the things that you need to have. They also have to have proof if they're doing the rehab themselves. So there's two things. If we do it, we're going to fund it, and we're going to hire contractors, or a contractor we could put it out, or a resident say, I'll tackle this project, you know. We want to do this. And then there's a whole nother application process, and they have to have verifiable funds to do the project. And then there's phases, and there's checks that we have to do, myself with the local codes, to make sure that they're following the steps in the process. So there's a lot to the rehabilitation part of this project process.
The lack of housing, and again, I hate to keep mentioning Little Falls, but it's an issue here. The lack of housing in our city has been talked about a lot lately. And it seems that there may be some properties, and I don't know the details, but there may be some properties in Little Falls that could be multifamily, 2-family, 3-family homes rehabilitated that way, which could be a good thing. Have you thought about that at all? That could be a good approach.
It could be. Again, part of that process is, again, if it's a rehab project and it's one of the properties that we can get or the city could get to do these projects, yes, there's a, part of that application is what you're going to do, what whoever's going to do with that property. Are you going to, is it going to be a rental property, or are you going to be the homeowner for that property, or are you going to be part of the homeowner and live in the property and then have tenants? So it's a great opportunity and for the communities to look at those things and do those things. We're open to that. The Land Bank is open to that concept.
Okay. So you mentioned you had one project in Herkimer that's done. It's November. It's only a couple of months left in this year. Where do you see this land bank in terms of progress at the end of 2025? What's your goal? Where do you want to be?
I would like to have the demolitions completed that are going to be demolition done, and I'd like to have the rehab projects on our current list, at least the process moving forward. A couple of the properties are just vacant land, which we should be able to dispose of, and one has a single wide trailer on it, which should be fairly quick to get that cleaned up. So my goal is to, like I said, have the demolitions completed and have all the rehabilitation projects started by the end of next year.
Okay. So as you go through 2025, 2026, what is the vehicle to properly communicate your progress to every community that wants to know about this? And I'm sure every community wants to know about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, we use our tools that we have. The county posts it, notices and things whenever we get things done. It's announced. They put it on the county website. I think you have to have the communities involved, let them, I don't want to say pat each other on the back, but we got to get, they're involved and they should be recognized for what they're doing as well. So I just think you got to get, again, it's got to be everybody. It's got to be everybody approach.
Yeah, I think having a way to publicize that through maybe people like Dave Warner, to publicize the successes and publish that so that people are aware that, look, this is what we're doing. This is how your money is being spent, because it is their money, taxpayer money, that's doing all of this, whether it comes from a grant, if it comes from the county tax base or whatever it is. They have an interest. And given the past failures, I think it's important that you get the word out every single time that you do something that shows that sort of success, right?
I agree 100%. And Dave was one of the first media people to contact me over the land bank, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And, kudos to the city, because they're the ones that step forward as well. So
yeah, it's a huge issue. There's no question about it. Maybe I shouldn't bring this up, but I walk a lot in this city, and there's one particular property on Ann Street, and I hope you can avoid this. There's one property on Ann Street that's actually owned by the Mohawk Valley Land Bank, and I don't know what happened. The whole project got botched somehow, and it's sitting there vacant. So here you have an organization that touted itself as being the answer to blight, and guess what? They created blight. You walk by there's trash on the ground. The bushes aren't trimmed. There's leaves all over. There's paper all over. Some of the windows are blown out. I'm thinking to myself, how ironic is that? So I know you're going to avoid that sort of a situation, because that's not the kind of thing you want to have on your resume.
No,
right?
you're bringing that up, and that's a great point. We had signs made up that I'm going to be mounting to the buildings that this property is owned by the Herkimer County
Terrific.
Land Bank, so that the public knows that that's, who owns that property. The second thing is we're putting out a request for proposal to have just a general maintenance person or a contractor or somebody that wants to go in, because we want to make sure that these properties, there's not garbage on them, that the lawns are mowed, that until they're taken care of, we're going to make sure that these things occur, that they're, if the windows are broken, they're at least boarded up and closed, and there's not, anybody going in and out of these properties. And we're doing that. That's the process in our mindset right now to get those things done.
The interesting thing about this property on Ann Street was that I believe it was supposed to be the office for the Greater Mohawk Valley Land Bank.
I'll take a look at it after the show.
I don't know what status is of that property, but it's right across the street from Stewart's. It's on a street that has some beautiful homes on it, and as is very common in Little Falls, you might have 3 beautiful properties, and then you have one that's maybe a zombie property or just needs a lot of work, and then you have 3 more that are nice. It'd be nice to see a few blocks in Little Falls that are just totally beautiful and done. So
I'm not opposed, and I have, like I said, nothing against the Greater Mohawk Valley Land Bank. I'm here to move our land bank forward, and I'm not opposed to calling them and say, hey, would you turn that property over to us?
there you go.
We want to tackle it. They may say no, but
Do the right thing.
I'm not opposed to doing that.
Yeah. Do you have a website?
It's coming. It's part of the requirements by the state, but we are working on it. It's a little bit of a process to get it done, but I've been told that we will be up and running by January 1st. That's our goal. So
Very important for communication and
notices and everything. Yeah.
I don't want to keep bashing Mohawk Valley Land Bank, but there's one thing that really gets under my skin is when I'm checking out a website and I see that it's totally out of date. Go on the Mohawk Valley Land Bank website and you'll see that it has been updated. In fact, even on there, they still have this, that they're doing a logo contest. I mean,
I saw that the other day.
I mean, it's just, I think it's unconscionable. This is taxpayer money, millions of dollars that the state gives away, our money, and it's being not used in the right way. So
I've said that 100 times, even when I was in government as a legislator. Whether it's Herkimer County tax dollar, or New York State tax dollar, or federal tax dollar, it's all tax dollars. Yeah. It's all our money. So treat it like it's our money.
Yeah. I'm sure you have an open door policy. So if a Joe citizen in any community wants to get a hold of Mike Edwards, how do they go about doing that?
Call the Land Bank office, 315-867-1650, or ML Edwards at herkimercountyny.gov, or HCLB at herkimercountyny.gov.
Or contact your legislator.
Or contact the legislature because they're involved, or one of the Land Bank directors.
Okay. Terrific. So to wrap this up, what would you like to tell the residents of Herkimer County about this relatively new land bank? And by the way, I meant to ask you, the land bank was established this past March, was it?
The process started in December, but we were actually formed in, I believe it was May. I don't know the date exactly, but it is early this year, yes.
Okay, it's relatively new.
Yep.
That was my point. So what's your message to Herkimer County in general?
The message is I want to thank the legislature because they're the ones that took the first step in this process to form this on their own. They broke away from the Greater Mohawk Valley. It's been a couple of years. They decided to form this on their own. And I, along with them, want to move these properties along. We don't want to see no progress. And I don't think the communities want progress. And I don't think the public wants to see any, they want to see things happen. And my goal, and I think the board of directors, and I think the legislature's goal, is to get these things done.
Yeah. Well, I would like to personally thank the Herkimer County Legislature because I think when you downsize it as they have, and they have more control, the other land bank was 6 counties, more difficult, less success for us anyway. So I'm thankful that they've done this, and I wish them success. And you personally, I want to wish you good luck. I know you've got your work cut out for you, but
it's new. It's been a learning process for me. But like I said, I'm excited about it in a sense. People are saying, well, you're close to, this end of where your career is going, and I was like, but it's a good challenge and it's good for the community. And I've always been about that. And I think we got to, and like I said at the beginning of this presentation, we're all one, whether it's Herkimer or Little Falls. We need to work together as one. And I think if we do that, we're going to move forward.
Well, I think it's money well spent. And we'll look forward to your progress and all those things that you just talked about.
Well, I enjoy this, and I hope you have me back.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, whenever you want to come back, just give Dave a call or give me a call. You've got my number, and we'll do it.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Especially as we move forward with some of the things that happen. Once the website's up and running and once we start to do a rehabilitation project, perhaps I could get some video or, take pictures and bring them in, or however, we get them.
Great.
Get them out to the public.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it.
I appreciate everything. Thank you.
And that's Mike Edwards, the Executive Director of the Herkimer County Land Bank. I hope you learned something. I certainly did. See you next time.